Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. Do you ever wonder about words and their meanings? I do sometimes. Clichés are one of my favorites. The standard definition in most dictionaries is a phrase whose meaning has been dulled by repetition. In my case, the cliché was a cheating spouse. I know, the cliché of clichés. It's such a common occurrence in marriages that there seems to be an entire section of the court system devoted to it. But even that has become a cliché. It's no longer a rare event. The system has grown tired of repeating irreconcilable differences and no fault over and over. So what? Big deal. It happened. Accept it or not, it doesn't matter to the system. Deal with it. This is the age of no blame unless it's happening to you. Then it's always someone else's fault. Another word I find interesting is rat shot. Rat shot is a type of ammunition, usually .22 caliber but available for a variety of firearms. It's essentially a miniature shotgun shell with a few tiny pellets of lead in it. Not lethal unless you're a rat. I discovered rat shot when I was 12. We lived about half a mile from the county dump in Gresham, outside Portland, a haven for scavengers, especially rats and vultures. Conditions were perfect for a rat population explosion that year. I had an old single-shot .22 rifle, and my father bought me 2 boxes of rat shot. "Cut them down, boys," Dad said. "They're starting to get into the chicken feed." My 10-year-old brother Leo and I had a field day. Dad had to buy us 2 more boxes. We'd pretty much wiped out the rat population around the house, so we ventured farther out. We were in a field near the dump, shooting rats as fast as we could reload. They were huge things, weighing a pound or more. I just reloaded the rifle and handed it to Leo. I stepped back. We were smart enough not to stand in each other's line of fire. At that moment, what must have been a king rat jumped out of the brush right at my feet. "Look, Leo!" I shouted. "Get him!" Leo took my advice. He got the rat, but in doing so, he put 2 pellets in my ankle. I discovered 2 disturbing truths that day. I do not handle pain well and tend to react poorly to being hurt. I also discovered that I have a terrible temper. Because when I came back to myself, Leo was on the ground screaming and crying, and I was standing over him also screaming and cursing. I don't remember what happened in between. I calmed Leo down and apologized. We agreed never to talk about it. For one thing, we were both afraid of what our father might do, and at the very least, he'd never let us near firearms again. So we told Mom I'd scraped my ankle on a barbed wire fence. I think the pellets dissolved over time, but who knows? Maybe they're still in there. My temper surfaced a few times during high school. It soon became common knowledge that I wasn't worth provoking because no one could predict when I'd lash out. Although I weighed only 5'7" and 140 pounds for most of high school, people gave me a wide berth. The last growth spurt came my senior year when I shot up to 5'10" and 170 pounds. I went to college on an academic scholarship, earned a degree in accounting and supply chain management, and made some good friends. I had a roommate from a moderately successful family for the last 3 years, and he taught me a lot about manners and social graces. I taught him not to take any nonsense from anyone. I think what I taught him helped him become a really good trial attorney. I met my future wife at one of the parties his family hosted, though we hadn't actually connected in years. She'd gone to the West Coast and I'd stayed in Portland. It was 4 years after high school graduation. We were celebrating Tyler Ashford passing the Oregon bar exam. I hadn't seen many of the guests since graduation, so there was a lot of catching up. I asked one of our former classmates about Claire. Man, that woman was stunning. She's probably already married to some CEO. Sunbathing by a country club pool and polishing her jewelry. Or maybe she's the CEO herself, paying someone else to polish her jewelry. Derek Walsh and Tyler stood there grinning like idiots. I immediately realized I'd said something wrong. "What? From the way you're looking at me? She's standing right behind me. Isn't she?" I looked at Tyler, who was trying to keep a straight face. "Hey, Claire," I said without turning around. "Give me a second while I get this foot out of my mouth." When I turned around, I saw her pull her hand away from her mouth. Tyler and Derek burst into laughter. I picked her up and spun her around. "Damn, you even smell as good as you used to. Back for a visit." She stopped smiling. No, I moved back home. Things didn't work out as well on the West Coast as I'd expected. I hugged her. Their loss. Welcome back. We chatted for a few minutes before one of her girlfriends led her away. I looked at Tyler. What happened? He shrugged. I don't know any details. Mom said she got married but came back alone. No rings. I'm sure she'll tell us if she wants to. I was making my rounds and saying my goodbyes when Claire came up to me. Since you're leaving, could you give me a ride home? I'm staying at my mom's, and I know it's on your way. I smiled. A little alone time with a beautiful woman would do wonders for my mood. Sure. Do you need a moment to let whoever you came with know? Her frown spoke volumes. Yeah, if I could find her. Vanessa left with Derek a few minutes ago. We probably won't see her for the next 2 days. I frowned, but for a different reason. She noticed in the car and asked about it. Vanessa Keller was the wild child of our group. Every group has one. And Derek was the player. Married, engaged, single, didn't matter. He never missed an opportunity to sleep with someone and brag about it afterward. I'd barely tolerated him in high school. My attitude toward Derek had softened slightly after he got married, but not by much. And Vanessa? Well, she was just Vanessa. She was always up for a good time. She'd gotten married right out of high school to a pretty decent guy. He had a job that required travel home only every 2 or 3 weeks. She lasted a year before she started seeing other people while he was gone. After 3 months of that, she was sleeping with just about anyone. He caught her and she didn't fight the divorce. I kept in touch with her for about 6 months after her breakup, even asking her out a few times. There was no spark, we were just 2 old friends having dinner. We talked about our lives, our futures. She was the last of the party crowd still living that lifestyle, and I was the last of our group still single. She told me once that she'd only get into a serious relationship when she was really sure she'd never betray someone again. She'd been hurt and she'd hurt others. But even knowing all that, she knew Derek was married. Claire smiled. Don't be too hard on her, Marcus. She was feeling lonely, and you know how quickly Derek takes advantage of that. I'm sure she'll set him straight tomorrow. I'm a little worried about her, I said. I mentally flagged that I'd talk to Vanessa soon. I tried to change the subject. So what's up, Claire? Are you back for good? Or just visiting? You know everyone's talking, and they've noticed you're not wearing any rings. She was quiet for a moment, looking at the night sky passing outside the window. It wasn't love at first sight, more like lust. We were together the first night, moved in together 3 months later, married 4 months after that. We were right for each other, at least for a while. Then the cracks appeared. He liked to party more than I did. I wanted kids, something we hadn't really discussed. He made it clear that if we had children, he only wanted one, and he wanted to wait at least 8 years so we could bond first. He liked buying things but didn't like paying the bills. She paused. It all came down to the fact that I'd committed myself to an immature boy, not a man. When I started telling him no, we grew distant. One day he just walked away. I'm ashamed to say it, but I was glad. My good job went the way of the economy. Without a job and without a husband, there was no point in staying. So I came back home. End of story. I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry your life didn't work out the way you'd planned, but I'm glad you came back. It got to the point where if I wanted intelligent conversation, I had to go to Tyler's parents' house. Even there, all they talk about is law. On the plus side, I'm not a bad lawyer. She smiled. Everyone knew not to get us started. We had opinions on everything, usually the exact opposite. Our arguments could go on for days. Rarely did either of us win. She smiled, then looked at me seriously. Marcus, how come we never got together? It was a fair question, considering the time we'd spent together. I guess I was thinking about you too much. Physical relationships have a way of ruining everything, especially at that age. Look at how many of our friends dated, broke up, and then hated each other for months trying to get the rest of us to choose sides. I didn't want to go through that and lose you. She looked at me in that way, you know, the one. The look that says you're not going to like what comes next. So even though you had feelings for me, you decided I'd make a better friend than a lover? No, I said. I decided you were too important to risk on a relationship that might not work out. I was young and stupid and scared. If I'd known you'd marry someone else and move away, maybe I would have taken the chance. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled slightly. Well, we got older and I got wiser. So next Friday night, pick me up at 7. Take me to a really nice restaurant. Get me a little drunk on wine. Have dinner with me. Ask me to dance. I haven't been out like this in ages. I couldn't think of a better man for me than you. I know you won't take advantage of that. I wish I could say the same, but it's been a long time, and I might just get you drunk and have my way with you. By then we'd pulled up to her house. Giggling at the expression on my face, she got out of the car, walked over, leaned in my window, and gave me a long kiss. Pulling back, she grinned. That's enough for you until next Friday. Don't call me. Let the anticipation build. Good night, Marcus. All week I'd been struggling with my reaction. Some small part of me wanted to stay away. Another part said to show up but keep my distance, as if it were an obligation. The biggest part of me was saying, "You fool, you've been given a gift. Enjoy it." And I did. We had a great time. We danced until 3 in the morning. Spent 40 minutes in the car afterward acting like teenagers. We laughed about it. We had 2 more dates and lunch with her mother. I started to feel comfortable with her again. The old arguments started up. I started taking her seriously. The next weekend, we didn't go out. I had a commitment that would take me out of town. She looked unhappy. Those plans don't include another woman, do they? I laughed. Yes, as a matter of fact, they do. I'm going to. She hung up on me before I could finish. It was strange. I left and took care of what I needed to do. I didn't get back until Tuesday. Not an hour after I walked in, the phone rang. An icy voice came on the line. Needed an extra day? The weekend wasn't enough? I think you should. I hung up, seriously wondering about her state of mind. I didn't speak to her for 3 days. Then I got a call from Tyler's fiancée. I was surprised we weren't particularly close. What's up with you and Claire? Hi, Becca. How's Tyler? Is the wedding planner getting on your nerves yet? Oh, stop it. I don't have time for games. Tell Tyler I said hi. Poor Tyler, I thought. I bet he'd already gotten an earful. Sure enough, he called 40 minutes later, practically begging me to meet him for a drink. I met him and Derek at our favorite bar. Derek knew how I felt about what he'd done to his wife and kept quiet. Before Tyler could begin, I interrupted. If this is about Claire, don't bother. We've met 3 times. I have to go out of town, and she's acting irrationally. I don't know what her problem is, but I haven't made any promises to her. I wasn't even given a chance to talk to her like a reasonable person. End of discussion. Talk about her one more time and I'll leave. I'd ruined their plan, and they didn't know what to say. I walked away. Another month passed, and it was time for the rehearsal dinner for Tyler and Becca's wedding. I wasn't Tyler's best man, but I was one of the groomsmen. Claire was a bridesmaid. I saw her but didn't approach her. Vanessa grabbed me as soon as she saw me. Stay close to me today, please. Derek's here and he's already drinking. I'm not interested in a repeat performance. His skills are lacking, if you know what I mean, and I have a pretty good basis for comparison. His biggest asset is the size of his bragging rights. That's probably why his wife left him. Pick me up tonight, will you? Protect the fair maiden from unwanted advances. I'll be very grateful. She giggled as I held out my hand. We both knew nothing was going to happen. Too bad for Derek, she said. The count keeps changing. At last count, Derek joined Claire in the ranks of the previously married. Only you and Tyler remain unmarried, and with Tyler on the short list, that leaves only you. A lot of women who've recently become unmarried have you in their sights. She frowned, hesitating. Tell me, didn't you and Claire go out when she first came back? What happened? My turn to frown. I don't know. We went out 3 times and I thought we got along great. Then I had to go out of town. When I came back, she was a completely different person and acted like I owed her an apology. I think she decided I'd found someone else. I haven't spoken to her in a month. Where did you disappear to? I laughed. Vanessa, you know where I go once a month. My old man had been a factory worker and part-time farmer. He'd inherited 50 acres from his grandfather. Because of his job and the farm, my mom didn't have to work, and we lived well. He raised 3 children, and if we didn't always get what we wanted, we always got what we needed. He taught us early on that if we wanted something, we should earn it, not wait for someone to give it to us. It was a lesson I appreciated more as I got older. We were grown now. Leo was 17 when our mom died in a train derailment at a crossing. Mom wasn't even first in line. A coal car flipped over onto 4 cars waiting to cross. It almost killed my dad. He was laid up for almost a year. Leo graduated from high school and joined the Navy. He'd read somewhere that single people often live fuller lives if they have someone to take care of. So he bought a blue-tick coonhound puppy from a friend and gave it to Dad. Dad immediately fell in love with the puppy. He became passionate about coon hunting. Taking some of the insurance money, he built several kennels and began breeding coonhounds. He learned how to train and handle them, spending many weekend evenings perfecting his methods. I could have been knocked over with a feather when he called and asked me to help him buy a computer. By then, I'd graduated from college and had a decent job. I asked a friend in IT to put together a nice system for him. I drove it out, hooked everything up, gave him some basic lessons and showed him how to use email. By the time I left that afternoon, he was already typing away with 2 fingers, enjoying himself. Following his belief that if you're going to do something, you should do it to the best of your ability, he enrolled in community college and took a computer course. Soon he had his own website. His reputation was enhanced when 2 of his dogs were named grand champions in different classes the same year. I was shocked to learn how valuable these dogs were and how much money he was making. He retired from the factory, did a little farming, and concentrated on raising his champions. To become a grand champion, you start at the local level, move up to district, then state, then regional, then national. To qualify, you have to go through trials. My dad was doing well until one night during competition when he tripped and broke his leg in 2 places. The leg healed, but he couldn't handle the night hunting or the stress of competition anymore. That's where Leo and I came to the rescue. Dad trained the dogs and we handled them at the trials. During the spring and summer pre-trials, Leo would handle them one weekend, and 2 weeks later it would be me. At nationals, Leo and I both attended and took turns running the dogs. There was a lot of socializing, dog trading, and drinking, but we left that to the old man. Vanessa, upon hearing about it, thought the whole thing was hilarious and insisted on coming along. She was bored within 2 days. It was all about dogs and everything related to them. There was no nightlife because all the time was spent in the woods. The women there usually looked the same as the men, jeans, caps, muddy boots. She told me later she'd almost slept with one of the judges just to have something to do. When we got home, she kissed me, told me never again, and went off to have her own version of fun. I felt sorry for whoever she caught. "Are you still doing this stuff?" Vanessa asked. "Yes, but we're training one of my sister's boys, so in a year or so I'll be able to step back. Dad has 3 champion females he breeds and 1 champion male that covers 25 females a year. Dad makes more money than I do." Vanessa looked thoughtful, probably doing the math. "So who was that female? And I mean that literally, that you were out with that weekend when Claire went crazy?" "Her name is Amanda Lee IV. Dad likes to name them after my mom. I wonder if Mom would have let him if she were still alive. Dad became her biggest fan. I think Mom would have approved. Do you know he still shows pictures of her at competitions?" Vanessa said. A glint appeared in her eyes that meant trouble. "Say, do you have pictures of your father's dogs? I had a magazine where I was featured with 2 of them. Both were grand champions in their classes, with my name listed as handler and Dad's as owner and trainer. Dad had sent it to me that week. Most of my friends wouldn't have recognized me in the photo. I was wearing Carhartt work pants, a cap with Dad's kennel logo, and 2 days' worth of beard. I told her about it. She was still in my car. "Give it to me," she said, holding out her hand. "Vanessa, you're not going to do anything embarrassing, are you?" "Not for you, no. But I'm going to make sure Claire sees it." I tried to talk her out of it, but finally let her, just so I could hear what Claire had to say. She took her time, waiting for the right moment. Claire, Vanessa, and a few other wives and girlfriends huddled around discussing weddings, their husbands, boyfriends, and so on. Girl talk. At just the right moment, Vanessa dropped her bombshell. Claire, are you still seeing Marcus? Claire replied, and her face tensed. No, it's over. I thought things were going well, but when he went out of town to be with another woman, my ex can attest that I'm not much for sharing. Wow, I didn't know you guys were serious. But you're right. I remember that weekend. It wasn't just one woman but two, and he went out with them all night twice. I even have pictures. She pulled out the magazine, having memorized the page, and showed it to the women. Afterward, Vanessa told me she wished she'd had a camera. Not just for Claire's reaction, but for the whole group. Most of them had never seen me in a suit or casual dress. I rarely wore jeans unless I was at home. The magazine got passed around, and that's when the joke started. One of the bridesmaids asked if it was true that I really knew how to handle females. Sure, I said. Keep them on a short leash, give them firm commands, and they usually do what you tell them. Need lessons. She ran off, squealing with laughter. The guys were even funnier. Everyone had something to say except Claire. She wouldn't even look me in the eye. Whether by luck or female scheming, I was paired with Claire at the wedding. During the reception, I kept the conversation light and pleasant. I looked around the room. With the exception of maybe Vanessa, Claire was the most beautiful woman there. We were doing a slow dance when she pulled back to look me in the eye. Say it. What, Claire? That I'm an idiot with poor social skills and very little common sense. I stopped in the middle of the floor. Why would I tell you such hurtful things? Honestly, I'm afraid to say anything to you. I don't know how you'll react. Right now, I like the feel of you close to me. Can we finish the dance without talking? She pulled herself to me so hard I thought she was trying to walk through me. Yeah, but we'll talk tomorrow. I'll call you. She didn't call, but she showed up at my house the next afternoon. Got any wine? She asked, walking past me as I opened the door. I watched as she made herself comfortable on my couch. She looked around. Why would a bachelor need a 3-bedroom house? I pulled out a bottle of my favorite wine and rummaged through the drawer looking for a corkscrew. I don't plan on being a bachelor forever. I think I'll need those bedrooms someday. She smiled, accepting the glass. I forgot you're one of those people who always has a 5-year plan. I shrugged. Probably the best idea communists ever had. I didn't say anything else. This was her show. Hear me out, please. I've had a hard time getting over my divorce. I even had to take pills, one to calm me down and one to cheer me up. When I mixed them, my emotions were all over the place. I really like you, Marcus. I always have. It was great meeting you again when I first came back. I've always had feelings for you. In my mind, you were perfect for me. When you said you had to go out of town and women came into play, I lost my head. It was like my ex all over again. I should have let you finish. When I called you, I should have called you back and apologized. But I didn't. I'm really sorry. More than you know. I still want to be your friend. And just so you know, I'm done with the pills. As it turns out, surprise, surprise, they weren't a good mix. She paused. Stop looking at me like that and say you forgive me. I looked at her. Wow. Hooked on pills? I always thought you were the most balanced person I knew. You never can tell, I guess. Give me a hug, you addict. She didn't know whether to be offended or take it as a joke, but she finally smiled and hugged me. Then we drifted apart, as always, arguing about the pros and cons of living in a society that has pills for every ailment known to man and a few more for everything you can imagine. It was a nice gesture. She didn't ask about getting back together, and I didn't mention it. 2 weeks passed. Then she called me. The Hillsborough Blues Festival is this weekend. Want to go? I loved the blues and had read good things about the lineup. Of course I went. After that, we started communicating regularly. I'd call her, or she'd call me, and we'd spend most weekends together. On the weekends I was gone for trials, she'd go off and do her own thing. I had lunch with Vanessa one afternoon, and she had a knowing smile. Now you can thank me. For what? For getting you and Claire back together. But I have a question. When are you going to stop pretending you're just friends? Hey! I protested. Vanessa rolled her eyes. She's been waiting a long time for this, you idiot. I thought about it that afternoon. We hadn't had any real intimacy since we'd started dating again. The following Friday night, we went out for a light dinner and a movie. I brought her back to my place instead of taking her to her mom's house. She'd been looking for an apartment but kept telling me she preferred houses. She just couldn't afford one right now. What are we doing here? She asked. I answered her honestly. The next morning, I woke up alone. She walked in with a cup of coffee, wearing one of my shirts. Get up, sleepyhead. I made coffee. Smiling, I shuffled into the kitchen. We made breakfast together. I went outside to gather our discarded clothes, and Claire stood in the doorway, giggling. She took my car and drove home to get more clothes. We went to a movie later and spent the rest of the day together. She moved in almost immediately. 9 months later, we were married. Claire found a job she liked, but it didn't pay very well. I had a good position and had just moved up one level in the company when we got together. I already owned my own house. My father had given me money for the down payment from the insurance settlement. We weren't rich, but we lived quite comfortably, especially for a young couple just starting out. Claire took over our house, remodeling it. We had a large backyard, and together we turned it into a beautiful sitting area. We laid paving stones, put in a table and benches, installed lighting, and built a gazebo. We painstakingly assembled a weather-resistant outdoor kitchen with a grill, side burners, cabinets, mini fridge, and sink. The centerpiece was a clay oven that a friend of mine built from local clay. Our pizza parties were a huge success. I was happy. She was happy. Life was good. For 2 years. I took Claire coon hunting with me once early in our marriage. She hated it. I told her why I was doing it, and she said she understood. For a while, things went smoothly. We had our routines, our pizza parties, our life together. But in the last year or so, she started to resent my hunting trips. The next 2 competitions I missed. Leo took one and Colin the other. I stayed home. Claire seemed to appreciate it. She started going to bachelorette parties with her old friends, including Vanessa. That first night Vanessa came to pick her up. She said, "Damn, it's my turn to be the driver. Don't worry, Marcus. I'll get her drunk and ready for you when she gets home." Claire blushed as Vanessa narrated, but Vanessa managed it. Claire was well intoxicated and amorous when she got home. I barely made it to work the next day. Then came the last time I tried to go hunting. She stood in the garage doorway trying to get me to stay. "Are you really going to give that up, so you don't have to sleep all night with some smelly dogs? Maybe I should look for someone else to keep me warm. Someone who appreciates what I have to offer." "Tell you what," I said. "Why don't you do just that? Call Vanessa. I'm sure she knows the best places to get laid. I'll leave the truck and take the car. Then she can help you move. Remember, this was my house first. Have a hell of a life, Claire." She knew, absolutely knew, that I hated cheaters more than anything. It had been almost 3 years since Derek and his wife had broken up, and it wasn't even about Vanessa. I could still barely stand him. Knowing that, she threw it in my face anyway. Tactical error. I grabbed my bag out of the truck, threw it in the car, and drove off before she could say anything back. Before I'd gone a block, my phone rang. I ignored it. I ignored it all the way to the hunt. Dad realized I was upset when he saw me, but prudently kept silent. I stroked and fiddled with the 3 dogs I was running, attaching GPS monitors to their collars. 21st century equipment. It made it so much easier to find them and track them back. The first night, I ran all 3 of them. The male got caught in a barbed wire fence and had to be withdrawn, but with the other 2 I took first place in the class. The young female was the best I'd ever run. That's what I told my father. He agreed. "I think she'll be a champion for a long time. I think she's the best I've ever bred." When I got home, I was tired, dirty, and not in the best of moods. Claire was still upset but smart enough not to push it. I took a shower and collapsed on the bed for a nap. She let me sleep for 5 hours before waking me up. "Dinner's ready. You need to get up, or you won't get enough sleep and you'll feel terrible at work tomorrow." Dinner went quietly. We cleaned up together and went into the living room. I looked for the remote and couldn't find it. Looking up, I saw her holding it in her hands. No TV until we talk. I apologize for what I said before you left. You should know that I'm not interested in anyone but you. With my new job, we don't have as much time together as we used to. Can you blame me for wanting to spend all the time we have together? Not at all, I said. I miss our time together too. But you knew I had family commitments when we got married. They're due to end this year. Dad's thinking of making Colin a full partner. It'll take the responsibility off Leo and me. I'll still go from time to time because I've learned to enjoy it. Is that really a problem? What made you think that? She raised her hands in a surrendering gesture. First of all, I hate my job. I didn't get my degree to run a specialty store in a mall. If you add up my hours, I'm barely above minimum wage. I hate having to work 2 nights a week and every weekend. I feel like I'm just spinning in place, going nowhere. I felt sorry for her. She, like everyone else in the country, was doing the best she could in a bad economy. If it's stressing you out so much, quit. We can hold out until you find something else. Maybe you can move into a new line of work, motherhood. We're almost 30. Time is ticking. It was an old conversation. We both wanted kids. We just wanted to be a little more financially stable first. Claire cried. I want our children. I just want to be able to give them the best. I do too. But maybe love is the best thing we can give them. Growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of love. That was more than enough. In the end, we apologized to each other but left the baby issue for later. Another cliché, the neighborhood stud. You know the guy. He usually has the biggest house on the block, or the prettiest wife he ignores at parties, the best job, or the nicest car. Our guy was James Mitchell. Don't call me Jim Mitchell. He didn't show up in the neighborhood for about a month. Claire met his wife and invited them to our monthly pizza party. That evening, we made pizza. The clay oven could be preheated to 600 degrees. Stick a pizza in there and it was done in 5 minutes. The smoke residue gave them extra flavor. Pizza night meant it was a party with kids. We prepared the crusts ahead of time and had them waiting on a table piled high with ingredients. The kids enjoyed assembling their own pizzas. I stuck them in the oven 3 at a time and then took them out on a big wooden spatula. It was messy, noisy, and very satisfying. James came over and ordered a pizza, specifying exactly what he wanted. I only grinned. I don't make them. I'm just in charge of baking them. You can make it yourself. He frowned. I got the impression he was used to being catered to. He had a pretty wife, medium build, a little heavy, and a daughter who looked like a carbon copy of her. Claire had to explain to them how it worked. The little girl enjoyed looking at the ingredients and making decisions. She was about 11, and the other kids were giving her all sorts of advice. When she was done, her pizza was about 4 inches tall. We intentionally made the crust small for the kids because experience told us their eyes would overload their stomachs every time. But even at that size, they often took home leftovers. His wife told him she'd already made the pizza, and he went back to his duties, impressing his new neighbors with his wealth and business acumen. Few of them actually believed his words. Most tolerated them with a slight smile. Some even argued with him, not caring a bit about his ego. He tried to charm the ladies but made little impression on them. I caught him trying to chat with Vanessa and Claire. Vanessa, noticing my gaze, smirked and lifted her foot slightly, letting me know he was pushing his luck. Vanessa almost never came to our parties unless it was pizza night. Despite her lifestyle, she loved kids and was the favorite babysitter in our group. Every kid loved Aunt Vanessa. After the party, I asked them what they thought of the new neighbor. Vanessa rolled her eyes. That man is a legend in his own mind, especially with women. He wants to make you believe he invented sex and was the only man who knew how to do it. Claire was a little kinder. Oh, I don't know. He seemed nice enough when he wasn't trying to flirt. Vanessa snorted. Claire, you've been out of the game too long. He worked the party, hitting on every woman who talked to him. Watch out for him. Nothing more was said. I still didn't like him. I got a promotion and was in line for another one in a year or so if all went according to plan. Claire still worked retail and still hated it. 2 nights and every weekend was killing her and ruining our intimate time. I tried hard to persuade her to quit her job and start a family. She was starting to seriously consider it. Another cliché. The husband is the last to know. That's not really true. Many people find out after the husband finds out. Process servers, attorneys, judges, private investigators, sometimes police officers and EMT paramedics. Often friends find out, but rarely family. It was the 4th of July, time for the biggest block party of the year. It had undergone changes over the years. It usually started early, and I usually heated up the clay pizza oven. The kids would run around, play, swim in one of the pools, and eat an early dinner. Then a few older teens would pack them off to a movie while the parents let their hair down. It was a pretty good system. It was the first time I couldn't be there. There was to be a major competition and trials that weekend that pretty much determined the champions. Normally Leo or Colin would do it, but Colin had the opportunity to go to the beach, and Leo already had plans to go with his family to an amusement park for the weekend. All the tickets were already booked and prepaid. So it all fell to me. Claire didn't like it, but there was nothing I could do about it. We had a pretty serious fight about it. "I don't understand why you can't say no," she said, standing with her arms folded across her chest. "Honey, please stop. If someone else was available, I wouldn't go. This is important to my father, important to his bottom line. If this new female proves herself, it could mean big money in the future. If your mom needed help, I'd be just as quick to say yes, and I'm sure you would too. I've cut back a lot this year, 2/3 less than in previous years. I'll be back as soon as it's over. Can we stop fighting about this?" Vanessa already said she'd come over and help with the pizza. "You won't be alone." "If you're not here, I might as well be alone," she snorted. She dashed into the house and slammed the door shut. She didn't speak to me at all that morning. I left. Even Vanessa could tell she was angry. What's wrong with her? She's upset because I have to go to this trial. We haven't been getting along very well lately. Her job is killing her. I wish she'd quit. We'd both be happier. She put her hand on my arm. "I'll talk to her. It might be good for her to be without you for a day or two, so she can fully realize what she's missing. Maybe when you get back, you can start working on a new niece or nephew for me." I hugged her. "Have I ever told you how lucky we are to have you as a friend? And while we're on the subject, when are you going to give up this lifestyle and give us a nephew or niece to spoil? Time is running out, sweetheart." A wistful expression appeared on her face. "I hear that, Marcus. There's very little choice. Who would want to marry a woman like me? Once my past comes up, they'll disappear like fog on a sunny day." I squeezed her tightly in my arms. "Listen to me, Vanessa Keller. Any man would be lucky to have you. They should be looking to the future, not the past. As far as I know, you've never misled anyone or made unfulfilled promises. If they have any sense, the joy you'll bring them will far outweigh the shadows of the past." She cried a little on my shoulder while Claire stood in the doorway frowning. "Aren't I at least entitled to a goodbye kiss?" It was like hugging a statue. She still hadn't offered a kiss. For the first time, I felt a little angry. We were going to have a long talk when I got back. I arrived at the trial site a little early, greeted those who were already there, and laughed at the familiar jokes. Even though I was from the same background as them, I'd gone to college and gotten a professional job. My nickname was Slick, short for City Slicker. When I first put GPS monitors on my dog's collars, they'd resented it. But after I started showing up an hour or two early with all my dogs accounted for, they stopped laughing. Losing a dog was a real possibility. Sometimes they were never found, or at least it took hours to find them. They decided that change was a good thing. Now all participants usually spent time making sure no one else was on their wavelength. I was surprised to see Colin, my nephew. "I thought you were going to the beach." He ruffled Amanda Seven's ears. "Yeah, my friend's mom had some business come up, so we're waiting until Monday to go. I was supposed to call, but I only found out about it an hour ago. You can drive home if you want. I'll take over." "Thanks, Colin. I probably will. I think I'll stick around until Dad shows up, maybe help with the presentations." I actually judged the beginning groups on presentations with my father. There was no conflict of interest because there were no entries from our kennel. I chatted with my dad and left. "I'll be home just after dark. so I can enjoy the adult festivities. I thought on the way home. Claire should be happy. We can spend the rest of the weekend together. Maybe start on the baby. It was a little before 9 when I pulled up in front of the house. I didn't bother unloading the car. Just popped inside for a quick change of clothes. The adult party was being held at the Mitchell house. It was the biggest party in the neighborhood. I'm sure James had his wife laboring for weeks to make everything perfect. I lived 6 houses down on a different street. After traversing several backyards, it was easier to walk than drive. The houses stood on a hill, each a little lower than the other, which made for interesting views if you kept the blinds open. I rounded the back of a neighboring house and grinned. Someone had decided to have their own little party. The blinds were open, and the window was at eye level. It was the Joneses' house. I could see people moving around inside. Being a man, I threw a few glances as I walked by. I was almost past the house when I stopped. The man's name was James Mitchell, and I was pretty sure the slender woman was not his heavyset little wife. I frowned. We'd lost 2 families the year before when one wife caught her husband with a neighbor. 2 divorces, 2 houses up for sale. I stopped and looked closely, hoping to identify the woman. He rolled over and pulled her to him. It was Claire. My vision blurred, and I lost touch with reality. Shaking my head to clear it, I looked again. It was definitely her, and she looked like she was enjoying herself. I thought about going in. I thought about making a scene. I thought about leaving until I calmed down. As I tried to think rationally, the temper I'd been trying to contain for years began to build. I had to force myself to turn away and walk back toward my house. I stopped twice on the way, trying to drive the anger back down. I got in my car and thought for a second. To hell with all of this? I yelled inside the car, slamming the door shut. I grabbed my rifle and ran toward the house, keeping in the shadows. I couldn't believe they were still there. Hadn't anyone missed them? I aimed through the window and fired. I heard yelling and saw people looking in my direction, so I ran in the opposite direction from the house, circling back to my car. I threw everything in the trunk and slowly drove out, heading back to the trial site. On the way out of town, I encountered no cops or emergency vehicles. 90 minutes later, I was back at the hunt. Inside the tent, I was shaking. I'm going to jail, I whispered to myself. The rage and adrenaline had dried up, and I was confused and saddened. I hoped I hadn't hurt her too badly. Rat shot is tiny pellets, unlikely to kill someone, but it sure hurts. It was a long night and I didn't sleep. I checked around. No one knew I'd left. As far as they knew, I'd gone to get food. I'd gone to the local supermarket and bought every container of fried chicken they had. Surely someone would remember I was there. Colin was in the woods, and my dad was out with friends on a drinking binge. I had the perfect alibi, assuming none of the neighbors saw me before I left. I'd lent Colin a .22 caliber pistol. It wasn't registered and couldn't be traced. I told Colin not to brag about it because an unregistered gun could get him in trouble. To say I was worried as I pulled up to my house would be an understatement. Claire's car was parked in the driveway, but the house was empty. On the kitchen table was a note written in large block letters. Call me as soon as you get home. It's important. Vanessa. I took a deep breath and dialed the number. She answered on the first ring. I didn't get a chance to speak. Marcus, you have to get here right away. Something terrible has happened. I went into worried husband mode. What's happened? Where's Claire? Is she with you? Shut up and get over here right now. I was at her apartment 15 minutes later, determined to play out this little drama. I was tired, anxious, more than a little afraid I was going to jail. She practically dragged me inside and burst into tears as she opened the door. I put my arms around her. Oh God, I thought to myself. She slumped down on the couch and patted it. There's something I need to tell you, something you're not going to like. First, I need to tell you that Claire is fine. She's a little sore, but she's okay. Where is she? What happened? Is she in the hospital? I need answers, Vanessa. She looked at me and squeezed my hands tightly. This is going to hurt. I need you to listen to me, okay? Try not to interrupt. Let me have my say. She paused, gathering her thoughts. We were making pizza for the kids. Mitchell came over, supposedly to check on his daughter. He tried to chat with me, but I quickly shut him down. He turned his attention to Claire, complimenting her, talking smooth. She was still mad at you and enjoyed the attention. I got so mad that I accidentally touched his hand with a red-hot pizza pan. He screamed like a little girl, and we put ice on it to prevent blisters. I may have been wrong because Claire hovered over him, and he ate it up. He went off to his house to make sure everything was ready for the adults. We fed the kids, and then the teenagers who were assigned to watch the little ones showed up. They took them outside to the Williams house, the one with the big basement. They had kids' movies ready to show on that huge TV. I was getting tired of listening. I interrupted her. I'm getting a little tired, Vanessa. Get to the point. I'm going to ask you again to tell me what's going on, or I'm going to call the neighbors, the police, and the hospital. Spit it out. She didn't look me in the eye. Okay. We cleaned up after pizza and walked down the street. Claire found the bar and made herself a stiff drink. Her charming host gave her a big hug and made sure her glass was full. You know how it is at parties, everyone's hanging around having fun. I lost track of her like everyone else. I figured she was somewhere in the house or on the patio. She was practically hissing with anger now. That Mitchell bastard ran out of bourbon, and instead of going to the liquor store, Mandy Jones gave him her house keys. Said she had 2 bottles at her bar. He promised to replace them and asked Claire to come with him. Said he didn't feel comfortable going into someone's house alone. She went. She took a deep breath. That's where it got complicated. Somehow he got her into one of the guest rooms, and they started. She paused. I gave her a cold stare. Define started. She hung her head. They were together. Damn it, I didn't want to tell you that. Even though I already knew, having someone say it to me made it hurt even more. I jumped up. I'm going to destroy that bastard. Vanessa was beside me, holding my hand. I'm afraid it gets worse. Someone shot at them. Don't worry. Claire wasn't badly hurt, but she's still in the hospital. I paced around the room. My anger wasn't coming from surprise, it was coming from having to pretend. Shot? What the hell has she gotten herself into? Was it Mrs. Mitchell who shot them? No. She was at the party. We all heard gunshots, but we thought they were firecrackers. We didn't notice anything until we heard the screams. Mandy found them. They were in her guest room. She called 911. They were taken to the hospital, and the police questioned everyone. She lowered her eyes and cried quietly. It's a mess, Marcus. The cops want to talk to you as soon as they can. I sat down again. The tears rolling down my cheeks weren't pretend. She got up and called the police. 10 minutes later, a patrolman was at the door. He noticed the tears, asked a few questions to clarify who I was, and took me to the station. Detective Johnson seemed like a nice guy. He didn't pressure me, didn't accuse me of anything. He just wanted to know where I was when it all happened. So I told him, gave him names and numbers of people who could confirm I was there. Told him what time I got home, about the note from Vanessa. I collapsed in the interrogation room. Are you okay? Need anything? He asked. Yeah, I need to get about 12 hours of sleep. I need to make sure my wife is okay. And I need answers. No one has told me what happened. I cooperated with you. How about you fill in the blanks? To his credit, he looked uncomfortable. There's no easy way to say this. Your wife and Mr. Mitchell were shot through a bedroom window, but it seems nothing life-threatening. They were in a neighbor's house. I think it was spontaneous. Both had blood alcohol levels above the legal limit for driving. I asked the million-dollar question. Do you have any idea who did it? He shook his head. Not the slightest clue. We thought it might have been you, but since you were 60 miles from the scene in front of witnesses, you're virtually in the clear. We brought in bloodhounds, but everyone in the area spent all day roaming the neighborhood, and the dogs just went around in circles. We brought in a dog that specializes in tracking gunshot residue, but with so many firecrackers and other fireworks, it was just running around confused. Right now, we're focusing on Mr. Mitchell. It seems the man had a habit of seducing the wives of his neighbors. That's how he ended up in your neighborhood. He had to leave the previous one because of a divorce his neighbor accused him of causing. He definitely has people who wish him ill. That's all we have for now, but you can be sure we'll talk more. I'm sorry, Mr. Holloway. I left the station and drove to the hospital. Vanessa drove me. She tried to talk me out of going. Don't do this, Marcus. You'll have a hard time later. I'm sure she didn't mean it. She was drunk, mad at you, and fell under the spell of a predator. My eyes were cold as I turned to her. Tell me, Vanessa, how can this be okay? I've been drunk since we got married. I've been mad at her a few times, and I've been hit on before. I haven't even thought about sleeping with anyone else except in fantasies. She didn't have an answer for me. I went on my own. I found the right floor and walked down the hallway. It just so happened that I passed his room first. I turned around and walked in. He was dozing. I stood there looking at him. My stare must have woken him up. He turned pale and reached for the call button. I grabbed his arm and leaned over him. Free advice. When you get out of here, move. I don't mean in a week or a month or when you sell the house. I mean move right now. I stood up. I hope you get everything you deserve. I paused. Remember our little talk. With that taken care of, I went in search of my loving wife. For lack of a better suspect, the cops came back to me several times. They asked if I had a gun and I opened my safe. My Remington 1100. They tested it. It didn't match. They eventually gave up on me. Claire stayed with her mother for 2 weeks. She was consumed with anger over her actions and guilt over my reaction. She had a wide range of emotions. I came home from work one day and found her gone. There was a note on the kitchen table. Marcus, I'm sorry. I can't live like this anymore. Even if you still love me, you'll never trust me again. And I hope I'm wrong, but I have a feeling you're the one who shot at us. I called my old company in Oregon, and they had an opening for me. I accepted and was on a plane 2 hours after you left. I only took what I needed, and my mom will be coming in a week or two to pick up everything I left behind that you don't need. I know I should have told you in person, but I'm a coward. I'm sorry again. I was supposed to be what you wanted, but I'm not. At least not anymore. I will always love you. I wish you a good life. Claire. I stood there looking at the note. Although I felt immense sadness, a big part of me was relieved. Our marriage was over when I caught them and pulled the trigger. Before she left, she called Vanessa. Vanessa arrived 2 hours later, read the note, hugged me, and sent me to bed. She stayed with me for 3 days before I convinced her I could handle it. I discovered that she often talked on the phone when she thought I couldn't hear her. I asked her about it. Her face lit up. You were in trouble, so I didn't say anything. I'm engaged. We've been dating for about 6 months now. He's like me, and we both decided it was time to grow up. We're going to Vegas next month. He's always dreamed of getting married by Elvis. I hugged her. That's great, Vanessa. What the hell are you doing here? Go home to your man. Tell him I said how lucky he is, and remind him that if he's rude to you, I have an extensive collection of weapons. She giggled. I will. Half the neighborhood thinks you shot Claire anyway. Maybe that'll keep him in line. The old group threw a party to wish her well and meet her boyfriend. It was held at my house. I didn't like him, but that didn't mean anything. I got another promotion, but I had to move to get it. I didn't mind. There was nothing keeping me here. My new job was a little closer to my dad's property, just on the other side. I still went once a month for trials just to have something to do. The next year, my dad passed away. Leo and Colin took over the kennel. They liked it better than I did. Colin moved into the house. The property was divided into 3 parts, and I ended up with the lot I wanted, 16 acres, mostly woods, some of which went up the side of the mountain. I laid out a road to a small bench and built a small log cabin. By small, I meant about 700 square feet. It was basically a kitchen living room, a small bathroom on the main floor, and a small bedroom upstairs. It was all the space I needed. I did almost all of the work myself with the help of my family, paying for electricians and roofers. I dated but never got anything serious. Too afraid of my temper. Once in a while I visited my old friends, and a few times I rented out the cabin. I heard that Claire had remarried and had 2 children. As far as I know, she never went back to Portland except to close out her mother's house when she passed away. Time passed. Vanessa got married in Vegas, just like she'd planned. For a while, I'd get occasional updates from mutual friends. She seemed happy. But 2 years later, I heard through the grapevine that it had fallen apart. Apparently, he wasn't as ready to give up his old lifestyle as he thought he was. She was devastated. She disappeared from my life for another year. One day I heard a knock on the door. It was Vanessa. She looked aged, tired, and sad. In her hands she held a blue-tick coonhound puppy. "Hi, Marcus. Can we come in? I think she's house-trained." I was at the cabin. I was seriously considering moving there permanently. I liked the privacy, and the place had everything I needed. "How did you know I was here?" "Leo told me." She hesitated. "Did you change your number?" I'd been harassed for 6 months by some addict who'd mistaken my number for someone else's. I stopped answering my phone, and she started texting me, offering me lucrative deals on different types of drugs. Eventually, I got so sick of it that I showed the text messages to a sheriff's deputy. He took my phone for 3 hours and copied everything. He texted her to arrange a purchase, bought from her, and tracked her to a major supplier. He was the one who advised me to change my number in case someone tried to trace it for revenge. I told her the story of my adventure in the drug trade. She laughed, saying it could only happen to me. I'd converted my kitchen to include a clay oven, and we made pizza and drank some wine. I asked her about the dog. "I stopped by the kennel to try to find you. One of your friends was trying to give this baby away. He said if he couldn't find a home for her, he'd give her to a shelter. I couldn't stand the thought that she might not be adopted, so I took her in. We quickly found out that she was not house-trained. It was getting late. I made up the fold-out couch for her and said good night. When I woke up around 3 in the morning, I found her in my bed, snuggled up against my back. I stirred. She hugged me tighter. I relaxed and fell asleep. The next morning, nothing was said. She was up before me, working in my small kitchen, making breakfast. I shuffled over, and she brought me coffee and kissed me on the cheek. We walked through the woods, and I showed her my solar panels that powered the cabin. It was pretty cheap for such a small house, and I had a gasoline generator for backup power. The puppy trotted in front of us until she got tired, and then Vanessa carried her back to the cabin. We went out to eat hamburgers, and then we ate popcorn and watched some romantic movie she'd picked out. Every now and then I noticed her sighing. Something was bothering her. I was patient. She would tell me when she was ready. When it was time to go to bed, she looked at me. "Can I go upstairs with you? Or should I wait until you're asleep? I'll trade a spot in bed for an explanation." She looked lost and alone. "If you let me stay with you tonight, I'll tell you all about it in the morning." "Deal." But I get the left side. I had to go to work the next day, so I slipped out of bed when the alarm clock rang, trying not to wake her. I let the puppy out of her crate to do her business and quietly placed her on the bed. She licked Vanessa's hands and then went back to sleep. When I got home, she was in the yard playing with the puppy. She hugged me happily and told me that dinner would be ready in half an hour. We had a very good meal. I thanked her for it, and she blushed. The roof of the cabin extended out in front of the house, and I had a lovely porch with a couple of rocking chairs on it. We took our tea outside to admire the sunset. We sat in friendly silence, both of us swaying slightly. She spoke so softly that I almost missed it. "Marcus, can I stay here for a while?" I continued to sway, thinking about it. "As long as you want, honey. I can go back to my apartment and you can." She shook her head violently. "No. I meant can I live with you for a while? Wherever you are, here or in your apartment. I just don't want to be alone right now." I needed to know. "Okay, you can stay as long as you want. You know you have to tell me why, right?" She nodded, hesitating. "Marcus, have you ever reached a point in your life where you realize that all your plans are just dust? That's exactly where I am right now. I was happy in college and the first few years after. I enjoyed my party life and didn't care what people thought of me. I never lied or hurt anyone. I saw all of our friends getting married and realized I wasn't ready. A few more years went by, and all of our married friends started to drift apart. It was sad and confirmed my decision." She paused. "Then I was diagnosed with an STD, Not one of the serious life-changing ones, but it still scared me. I looked at Tyler and his wife and you and Claire and wanted what you had. I don't know if you remember, but one day before you two broke up, I told you I was thinking about changing my life. And I did. By then you and Claire were getting ready to divorce, and I decided to be really sure. I thought everyone should love as much as you two did. And when everything fell apart, it made me think. But I found a guy. I think I fell in love with him because he reminded me of you in some ways. He was wonderful during our courtship and the first year we were married. I told him about my past and he told me about his. He and his first wife were swingers. His marriage failed because of it and he swore he was done with that lifestyle. But deep down, he missed it. The second year, he introduced me to some of his old friends. They seemed nice enough to me. We went to a few parties and I started to notice a pattern. At one party, I was harassed until I made him drive me home. It was the worst fight of our lives. I told him I wasn't interested and that I'd better be enough for him if he wanted to stay married. He swore he'd have no more contact with them except for casual meetings, walks, ball games, and the like. I believed him for about 4 months until he was foolish enough to tell me he was going to a baseball game and would be home very late. The downside to that was that it was November, and no one plays baseball in November. I followed him to the house of one of his swinger friends. I sat in the car for half an hour, and then went inside. They had already started. There was a lot of activity. I asked where my husband was and headed for the room they pointed to. I opened the door, and there he was with 2 women. She paused. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just closed the door, went home, packed my things and left. I filed for divorce the next day. She looked at me. So here I am, 32 years old, twice divorced, with a puppy I can't keep because I live in an apartment that doesn't allow pets. I feel like I've wasted my entire life. I reached over and took her hand. You haven't wasted anything, Vanessa. You've learned. You've grown. And you're still here. That counts for something. She started crying, and I held her while she did. Well, I didn't know what to call her. Everyone tends to call them blue ticks. But I couldn't do it since the last part of the word is tick. I named her Juniper, Junie for short. Isn't that a cute name, baby girl? She stroked her belly and cooed to her. You're going to be a great mom, I said. Came out of my mouth before I could think. She froze. A look of sadness appeared on her face. I hope so if I ever get the chance. We were already 32, and her window was rapidly closing. There was no future for us. She knew it. I knew it. But that was just the way it was. She was a wonderful companion. Better than anyone I'd ever been with. Our time together was comfortable. But while we had feelings for each other, neither of us made plans. She lived with me for 8 months. I got her a job at my company. It didn't pay as much as she was used to, but it gave her something to do. She quickly made friends and started having the occasional girls' night out. One day she came home after a night out and we spent the night together. She did the same thing the next morning. When we were done, she sat up in bed, and a tear ran down her cheek. What's wrong, baby? I'm going to sleep on the couch for a while, Marcus. That was our last time together. I met someone, a guy from the bar we girls go to. He's been there a few times. Carol knew him and brought him over so we'd have someone to dance with. I kissed him last night at the end of the dance. It was electric. I realized it was time to move on. I can't be with you and think about finding someone else. Please tell me you understand. I looked at her with gratitude and sadness before pulling her to me. The time has come. We both knew it would happen sooner or later. I hope this guy is right for you. Just be careful. 2 more cliches I don't like. They lived happily ever after, and time heals all wounds. 3 years passed, and I still missed Claire. She had remarried and had 2 kids. I hope things worked out for them. Vanessa married the guy from the bar. He seemed like a nice man. She told him about her past when they started a serious relationship. Her heart melted when he admitted that he'd only been with 2 women before her, and he was looking forward to what she could teach him. She said she planned to give him lessons for the rest of their lives. She gave birth to their first son at the age of 35 and their second son at 37. Every day I lived with regret. I should have forgiven her. we'd probably still be together. Memories of it kept me from getting involved in a relationship. I was afraid of my temper. Now you know how it feels, I muttered to myself. I dated but never got close to anyone. My favorite cliché of all time. Love conquers all. I joined a local gym in Portland. I worked out but went mostly to yoga and Tai Chi. It helped me focus and keep my mind in check. I spent most of the year in therapy. It helped. I learned to control my temper and not be so judgmental. I won't say it was easy. I still have to push back sometimes. They say love comes to you when you least expect it. I know another cliché. She was new to yoga and got into the wrong class. She got into an intermediate class, not a beginner class. She struggled to stay on her feet, got confused, and ended up falling on top of me. This embarrassed her to the core. I helped her up and she ran out of the classroom. The next day, she was standing in the hallway looking unsure. When she saw me, she blushed. I smiled at her. It gets easier, you know? Don't give up. That broke the ice. We chatted before class, and she was waiting for me at the end. She faltered before she blurted out, "Would you like some coffee?" The statement came out as she colored various shades of red. It took 3 dates before she stopped blushing and 2 more before I got a kiss. It was worth the wait. She saw my face when we exchanged names. Natalie Brennan. What? My ex-wife's name was Claire. Oh. By the 7th date, I realized she was probably the one. She had a little boy. He was 3 years old. Her husband had gotten a better offer and left her. She had no idea where he was. The baby was her life, and our dates depended on her ability to find a babysitter. After the 3rd time she had to cancel, I showed up at her door. "Get dressed. Get your son dressed. We're going out to dinner. If we keep going like this, I'm going to have to meet him eventually." Emotions ran one after another across her face until she smiled. "Come in. I won't be long. How should I dress? We're just going to have dinner. Jeans will be fine." And so I sat in her living room listening intently while her son tried to explain something about a game he was playing on his toy computer. By the time she came out, we had become fast friends. She was 27. She'd chosen a restaurant, a small diner, and everyone knew her name. Evan was putting fries on his plate while we talked. We ended up going to the movies and watched a Pixar movie, which Evan didn't understand but enjoyed immensely. I had a great time. When I took them home, he was out like a light. She invited me into the house while she put him to bed. Vanessa had to leave Juniper behind. Her new man was allergic to animal hair. She'd cried as if she'd lost a baby. Junie immediately bonded with Evan, whining if I wouldn't let her play with him. Soon she was sleeping in his room. Natalie was concerned. "Don't be," I said. "She adopted him. She'll make sure he's safe." Natalie smiled that secret smile that women have. "Vanessa was right, you know?" "Right about what, baby?" She blushed. "She said you were the best lover she'd ever had. Big enough but not too big, and you knew how to use it. She said it didn't really matter. What mattered was that you gave yourself completely, not caring about your own needs. She said a woman could feel it, and she was right." I thought about it for a while and decided it wasn't so bad. 2 months later, I threw a little pizza party. My brother Leo, my nephew Colin, their families, Vanessa and her husband and baby, Natalie's parents, a few neighbors with families. My sister even showed up on one of her rare visits. The kids were chasing fireflies, and Natalie's parents were sitting in lawn chairs, chatting with some of the older neighbors. Natalie sat as close as she could and watched Juniper chase Evan and the rest of the kids as they played. "Do you like it here, Nat?" "I'm not really sure what you mean," she replied, frowning slightly. I did my best to keep my face straight. "It's a simple question, but let me clarify. Can you imagine yourself living here? We'll have to add a couple of rooms, one for Evan, and then hopefully a little girl. But I like it here. I don't want to move, so it's up to you, Nat. I already talked to Evan, and he's fine with Juniper sleeping in his room. So how would you feel about living here as my wife?" I held out the ring to her. She went pale and then literally snatched the ring out of my hands. That pretty much ended the party. Her scream caught the women's attention, and then I was literally thrown off my chair. The guys huddled around me. Congratulations were being offered. I pulled out the peach brandy I kept for special occasions, and a toast was shared by everyone. We decided not to expand the cabin and built a house below it. The cabin became our retreat and later served as our kids' sleepover base. When our little daughter came along, things got more complicated, but she ended up having her sleepovers there too. Her mom helped her make things more girl-friendly. When Evan was going through puberty, I almost had a nervous breakdown. When our daughter had her parties, I was even worse. But they were good kids. Natalie was 28 when we got married, and I was 37. I worried about it for a while, knowing I would probably leave before she did. But I stopped when I realized she was the glue that held our family together, and she would take care of the family. Before we got married, I told her everything about my bad temper, what I'd done to Claire, everything. She thought about it for a bit, then smiled and said she was glad she didn't know me then. Good guys finish first, she said. We all get what we deserve. God, don't you just love cliches? Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.